Hello and welcome back to the morning commute. Good morning, Loluma. Yatepen, Sunway Talaba. It is a beautiful morning. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you had a great, restful night and a fun-filled weekend. Hope you got to spend time with your family, friends, loved ones. It is a beautiful morning. We are reading 64 degrees outside. And I have me a nice cup of coffee here. I'm going to tap into it shortly. And I must say, traffic's looking really good right now. It's good to have another day. Let's make it productive. We have training next or tomorrow. The vendor will be here on Tuesday. Let's hope that we get, fingers crossed, I'm hoping that support from Biomario will have the BCI connection figured out. The tech support person was really struggling on Friday and she did not seem to want to reach out to anyone for help, so it got pushed up. Hopefully it got pushed up to someone else, and I hope we have a solution today, because from our end we're ready to go. We got the test build, reference ranges verified, units, link, CPT, our network ports ready, we are drivers installed, configured, and we are ready to go. We like to have the interface ready for training when it comes time. I think this year, or the whole time, the biggest struggle throughout has been the Diasorin. It wasn't necessarily the connection itself, it was the rules that came with the assay. And those are the ones that took some professional services from the middleware vendor. But once the rules were tweaked, it was good. So let's go listen to the news, see what's going on with traffic and such.
President Trump has made tariffs a central part of his economic agenda and recently threatened a 200% tariff on European wine, champagne, and spirits. Wine importers say a tariff would essentially shut down the $27 billion European wine business in the U.S.
Also over the weekend, President Trump says he's considering ways to serve a third term, telling NBC, quote, "There are methods which you could do it. I'm not joking." The 22nd Amendment to the Constitution limits the president to 2 terms. All of our top stories are just 15 minutes away. For more news, go to KTAR.com or the KTAR News app.
Now it's John Roller live from the Valley Chevy Dealers Traffic Center.
Thank you very much, LaDonna. Heads up if you're coming southbound on the I-17. Reports of a large piece of debris on the off-ramp there. Southbound I-17 at McDowell. It's off to the right, and the DPS trooper is en route to get that out of the way. Heads up, it is still dark out and sun getting ready to come up, but don't need any hang-ups north of the stack there. Eastbound I-10, that's where we're seeing some slowing starting at about 91st Avenue. Then again, you'll reload at the transition to the 202 southbound as you come eastbound into downtown Phoenix. Other than that, rest of the Valley main line's looking very good right now, and we cleared away that one and only crash, 19th Avenue, just south of Camelback. That is out of there, so the surface streets are looking good as well. Traffic is brought to you by Asset Preservation Wealth and Tax. Join Stuart Willis for the Asset Preservation Hour each week as he empowers and educates those in or near retirement. Saturdays at 2 p.m. and then again at 4 p.m. and Sundays at 2 p.m. right here at KTAR. John Roller, KTAR News.
Mostly sunny today with some gusty winds at times. Looking for a high of 85. Your weather is brought to you by Howard Air and Plumbing. Whether replace or repair, call Howard Air and Plumbing.
On Friday, U.S. District Judge James Boasberg extended his temporary restraining order for another 2 weeks, which blocks the Trump administration from carrying out deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. But hours earlier, the administration had already asked the Supreme Court to quickly hear a plea to lift Boasberg's order.
So what happens next and how soon? Joining us is ABC News investigative reporter Peter Haralambos. Peter, this all comes from a case where the ACLU asked that Venezuelan migrants accused of being members of a dangerous gang were flown to a Salvadoran prison. So there's a lot of intrigue in this case. How soon is the Supreme Court expected to hear this?
Yeah, the Supreme Court could be making a decision on this case as early as this week. They've asked for the ACLU to file a response by Tuesday morning, and this is just an emergency application, so there's not going to be any kind of oral argument. We could see a response by the middle or end of this week.
You know, it's interesting because you have something that looks terrible, right? You have gang members on U.S. soil who shouldn't be here, and Americans who are like, well, we kind of need to get rid of them, and yet you still have to kind of, you have to follow the law. And trying to figure out what the law is when you've got so much legalese being thrown at you is difficult to do.
Yeah, it's overwhelming at times, and at first I think because there was so much legalese in this whole Alien Enemies Act thing, and the implications were unclear, it took a while to figure out how big of a deal or how serious this was. But now that we kind of have fully grasped what the Trump administration wants to do with this law, the stakes could not be higher here. If the Supreme Court signs off on this use of the Alien Enemies Act, the Trump administration has free reign, basically, to deport these people with little to no due process, insofar as they believe they're members of Tren de Aragua. And while that seems reasonable in the case of a person who the Trump administration is calling a terrorist, really the issue becomes this question of who is or who is not a member of Tren de Aragua and what rights they have to challenge that designation. A lot of the people who've actually been sent to this El Salvadoran prison to be held for about a year, they're denying any kind of affiliation. They're saying this is a big mix-up, and they're currently being housed in arguably one of the most notorious prisons in the entire world.
And this is, by the way, just to rule on a temporary restraining order that Boasberg has put in place, this U.S. District Court judge, because, he's going to have another hearing coming up to look at taking a longer-lasting preliminary injunction. So there's still a lot of more steps to go in this case, right?
That's exactly right. Every single one of these things the Supreme Court has actually brought up to the Supreme Court, with the exception of birthright citizenship. These are all temporary restraining orders. So in a way, these are kind of short-term orders that are still being litigated in lower courts. That means that all of these issues that are going up to the Supreme Court basically will have a second life, will be appealable on a second go once the Trump administration actually waits for these stuff to play out. So we'll see activity from the Supreme Court this week, and then in a few months we'll likely see this matter back at the Supreme Court once it's gone up through the Circuit Court and back to the Supreme Court once again.
So, just to be clear, this ruling is only on a very narrow piece of this whole story. The ruling, if the Supreme Court makes it this week, would only be on the injunction right now.
That's right. It would only lift that temporary restraining order, but the impact of that could be sweeping. It means the Trump administration could immediately resume those kind of deportation flights under the Alien Enemies Act. We understand that there are more people that they believe are members of Tren de Aragua that they plan to use this law on to remove them from the United States. If that order is lifted, we could see a world in which those deportation flights begin within a matter of hours.
All right, that is ABC News investigative reporter Peter Haralambos joining us this morning. And here's what's interesting is when a judge has a temporary restraining order that rules one way or the other, it tends to be what is in his mind is going to be the long-term solution to this. So, Peter's right. This is really going to basically start all over again, no matter how the Supreme Court rules on this, it still has to go through that trial in Boasberg's court, and likely...
And the appeals process beyond that.
Right, and then back at the Supreme Court. So this is not a story that's going away anytime soon. It is 5:49 now on KTAR.
Coming up in just moments, it turns out the U.S. is not the only country eyeing Greenland.
Boy, Greenland must just feel like they're the pretty girl at the dance right now.
And they're probably wishing that they weren't.
Maybe. All right, here's John Roller in the Valley Chevy Dealers Traffic Center.
All right, thank you very much. So far, it's been a very quiet start to the week. Our morning commute just getting underway, and more folks are starting their day, and that means we have a couple of spots of slowing starting to build on the eastbound I-10 stop and go at 51st Avenue over to about 43rd Avenue, and then you'll reload as you come into the stack into downtown Phoenix. About 27 minutes from the 101 of the West Valley into the downtown area. Southbound I-17, about 16 minutes from Cactus down through the stack. Your slowing will start at Glendale down to Thomas. Other than that, that is it. East Valley, you are still quiet. Westbound 60 through the Broadway curve, looking good. Same thing with the 202s, and the surface streets are quiet as well. John Roller, KTAR News.
Look for sunny skies today with 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts and a high of 85. Cloudy tonight with 59 as the overnight low, and we're back into the 70s for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Weather is brought to you by Howard Air and Plumbing. Weather replace or repair, call Howard Air and Plumbing.
All right, Jim Sharp here, and if
After party on April 11th, a VIP late-night party in the museum experience featuring the premiere of The World of Anna Sui before it opens to the public. More at phxart.org.
84 yesterday, was a couple degrees above normal. Expecting about that today. Should be the warmest day of the week. Temperatures start to drop by tomorrow. And right now it's 64 degrees in Phoenix at 5:52.
Okay, folks, thank you for tuning in. It's a nice drive, beautiful morning. I hope you guys have a great day.